The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is considered by many to be the greatest video game of all time, and so with that being said, there has been recent rumors and speculations that potentially next year, to celebrate The Legend of Zelda's 40th anniversary, that Nintendo is planning on remaking The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I figured that I'd go ahead and write down and make a video about what I would love to see or be kind of added to Ocarina of Time if it was to be re-released again. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think, if you guys agree with any of the opinions that I share here today, and if you guys don't or whatever, just go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get on with what I hope to see on The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Remake. So the first things first, what I actually want to go ahead and first talk about here is the difference between a remake and a remaster. For those of you that don't know, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time did have a re-release on the Nintendo 3DS back in 2011. In that case, in my mind, it didn't really do much of changing much of like the actual gameplay or nothing like that, but it did of course have an update to the graphics, and so for me personally, I see that more so to be an actual remaster. The gameplay loop, the way how everything pretty much works, the gameplay itself, the fundamentals of the game basically were the exact same as the original, and the only thing that really did have a boost there was of course the graphics and just the frame rates. And so with that, I classify The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D as a remaster and not a remake. And now when it comes with the remake, the way how I would classify it is basically in a way starting over in terms of the engine, mechanics, gameplay, and of course story elements, but in a way still respecting the original. The way, or a perfect example of this would be of course the game of Final Fantasy VII Remake, where it is basically, instead of it being turn-based RPG from the original PlayStation 1 version, it's actually now with this remake an action RPG. Not only that, they're also going ahead and basically starting up with a brand new engine, brand new graphics, and as well as basically adding more story key points to the story, pretty much adding a little bit more details to it, or even just adding more to the story overall. And so with that, for me, I classify that as an actual full-on remake. And so the first thing that I would want to go ahead and notate here, what I would love to see when it comes with the Ocarina of Time or the potential Ocarina of Time remake, is I would actually love to see a more expanded Hyrule. With what I mean is that being on a more powerful system, Nintendo can add more types of terrain, more seamless connection between every point of interest, and of course just having better controls and quality of life improvements. What I mean by the land of Hyrule, looking at the Nintendo 64 original and of course the 3DS remaster, it made sense for it to be the way it was due to the weaker hardware. But now if they're going to be doing an actual remake, I would love to see the world be a bit more alive, if that makes sense. An example would be such as when entering Castletown, it would actually be all in 3D like the original and early screenshots of Ocarina of Time depicted. But of course later on was changed into the fixed camera angles that we got on the final release. In Hyrule Field, I would love to see it having more of a geographic features like more hills and some small caves scattered around would be awesome to see. Kind of in the same vein as well as like what they did / added with Tears of the Kingdom. Other things that I would also like to see is kind of more enemy types like bokoblins roaming around the world. The original Ocarina of Time, there really wasn't much going on if you were exploring the land of Hyrule or going through Hyrule Field in the daytime. When it was nighttime, we would actually go ahead and see like the skeleton monsters come out and attack Link. Another idea that I also had was that once you are actually in a dwarf form, since Ganondorf has now taken over Hyrule, I would love to see the land being a little bit more corrupted, or just see more of his soldiers roaming around like I mentioned, making it more dangerous. I would also love to see kind of like camping settlements in the same vein as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to appear, and also just seeing traders roaming around the land. If we're able to assist them when they are being attacked, they can give us some form of reward in the same way that we help them out when we see people roaming around in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom. So that's kind of the aspects of what I mean that I would love to see the world being a little bit more alive and just kind of seeing this type of thing where there's just a lot of more things for you to actually kind of interact with in the actual Hyrule Field itself. When it comes with the control schemes, I would actually like to go ahead and see it be more in line with like recent games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Of course, providing free camera controls and even potentially having a dedicated jump button. If Nintendo really wants to as well, if they are going to really be expanding this land of Hyrule here potentially, I mean, they can even go ahead and add a stamina meter and provide Link the ability to sprint. Though, of course, like I mentioned, the fastest kind of movement that you had in the original Ocarina of Time on N64 and even on the 3DS version was, of course, Link rolling around. Though it has been a while since we've seen Link even roll around in any kind of recent Zelda games. I would love to see, of course, Link's rolling kind of coming back, but I also would be happy with just seeing him being able to sprint again here. Since it does make sense to adapt this new movement, since it is a new thing. Now, going a little bit more when it comes with enemies here, or just speaking a little bit more about enemies, I should say, what I would like for them to actually have, and this is one system that I really did like when it came to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, is that I would like for them to actually be a little bit more difficult, kind of sharing the exact same different color difficulty variant in a way, for example. So that would be really awesome for us to see. Maybe when you're playing as young Link, it would be, of course, like the first early on kind of like normal colors that we would see of the goblins, you know, kind of like their orange base color. But then when you turn into adult Link, we would actually be able to run into like kind of more like the silver ones or the gold ones and stuff like that. So kind of adding a little bit more of a difficulty variant there would be awesome to see here for you know, this Ocarina of Time remake. And even just seeing more enemy types like Lynels or even Dark Nuts would be awesome to see, just having them roaming around the world, since again, Ganondorf has corrupted the mainlands here, at least when it comes to adult form Link. So that is for sure something that I would love to see, is a little bit more of a difficulty kind of enemy base to be roaming around. So just something that I had in mind that I think would be awesome, really. Now, some things that I actually have that I do want to go ahead and add here on my list here that some people have even actually talked about when discussing this potential remake is that giving Link the ability to climb over basically everything the same way as you could in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Honestly, when it comes to that, for me personally, I don't, if they're actually able to find a way to make it work then sure. But I feel like for this game, I don't think they should. It honestly really depends on just how far they really want to take this remake and how much of an expansion they want to do here. I don't see this being on the levels of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, at least map-wise. The way how I actually see it is maybe in the vein of like, or at least scale size of like Twilight Princess's version of or depiction of Hyrule there. But honestly, who knows, again, how far they actually want to go ahead and just kind of revamp this whole land of Hyrule here. It also just depends on how, you know, we want this remake to be structured. If Nintendo wants us to also follow the open air template in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, kind of a more freedom kind of based template, or do they actually want to go ahead and follow the more classic general kind of Zelda sense, where it's somewhat a little bit more linear, but still, of course, giving you that freedom of exploration. It honestly just depends on just what exactly they want this remake to be. It just really just depends, again, just what their final goal is here and how different they want this remake to be compared to the original. Now, talking a little bit more now in depth when it comes with the story of Ocarina of Time, likely kind of gone due to limitations was the kind of showcasing the after effects of the Hyrulean Civil War. For those of you that don't know, there was actually a civil war affecting the land and thus leading a woman with a baby running into the Kokiri forest. She then came across the Great Deku Tree and pleaded with him to protect her baby, and the Great Deku Tree sensed something with the baby and agreed to take care of him. This, of course, turned out to be Link. So seeing the world having a bit of an effect, or maybe even seeing some old battlefields scattered around Hyrule Field this time around, would be awesome to see. That is one of the big key things that, of course, just wasn't really showcased here in the original Ocarina of Time, which is likely due to, of course, it being on the N64 original, you know, being limited with, you know, the power that they had there at the time. Kind of in the same same sense as like Breath of the Wild, where we see, you know, kind of like the after effects of what Calamity Ganon has done to the land of Hyrule. It would be cool to see kind of in that same vein here in Ocarina of Time. That would be, again, something that I would be more interested in, of course, seeing and having them kind of expand upon that a little bit more, giving us a little bit more information and details about it. Knowing Nintendo, when it comes to these types of little like snippets and stuff and like kind of previous past and, you know, kind of the storytellings of their games, I doubt they actually want to go ahead and even like talk about the Hyrulean Civil War as much. Now, going back and talking about the actual land of Hyrule Heal, or the entire world of Ocarina of Time, I want to go ahead and talk about kind of what things that they should be, or some areas that they can actually go ahead and be able to expand upon. So one thing that I of course had was, of course, the path leading to Kakariko Village and Death Mountain. I feel like that should be expanded, kind of adding more different enemy types there than just the Tektites, and maybe just as well adding more caves and stuff, or even lava lakes spewing around or whatever, making your way to the Goron City, or of course Death Mountain. When it comes to the actual size of Kakariko Village, and of course including the graveyard there as well, I personally think that they are actually perfect the way how it is. It's a small little village. They have their own little graveyard, which that graveyard is a way to, in a way, remember the people that sacrificed their lives during the Hyrulean Civil War, actually. So maybe that is, again, another way that they can actually go ahead and showcase and add a little bit more story tidbits to that. But other than that, just size wise and everything, even looking at it back from the original Ocarina of Time, I think it was still perfect. But of course, whenever you're exploring in between these certain areas and stuff, one thing that I would love to see is have the loading screens for original Ocarina of Time. I would love to see that just go ahead and just being gone, having you being able to go from one point to the other. I would love for that to be transform into a lot more of a seamless kind of way to do it. Looking at other areas such as Zora's Domain and Lake Hylia and all of those, I personally would say those were also really good as well. If they want to go ahead and add different types of enemies and stuff like that to kind of fit and in their own corresponding areas, would also be awesome to see. But again, just size wise, those areas I personally think are just perfect. Really, Ocarina of Time in general, at least when it came to its world and the size of it, the scope of it, I think was actually a really good size. But again, maybe Hyrule Field is kind of like the main big thing that I feel like should be explored upon or maybe updated a lot more. And now one of the other final things that I have here when it comes to what I hope to see in the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake potentially is them adding some of their original content that was actually there back in the original N64 version. So for example, we had things such as the potential Light Temple, Wind Temple, and of course the Ice Temple. Though when it comes with the Wind and Ice, they were actually pretty much rechanged to the Forest and Water Temples respectively. And when it comes to the Light Temple, they basically just went ahead and, from the looks of it, just removed it and pretty much made that be the very first thing that you actually get, at least medallion wise, is the Light Medallion from Rauru. And so people were actually thinking even back then, and there has even been speculations or rumors and stuff, that there was supposed to be the actual Light Temple where you would actually go ahead and rescue Rauru. The other thing that I would also love to see is specifically when it comes to these Light Medallions is that I actually want them to actually play a little bit of a role here, kind of potentially giving Link a little bit of a boost of like some form of power or something, kind of in the same way as like the original medallions, I guess, that you had in like the Link to the Past and stuff like that. It would be awesome to at least see these medallions give or provide some form of like power boost or something like that to Link when he goes on to his adventures and stuff like that. One big key thing as well that Miyamoto had actually even stated when it came to interviews of Ocarina of Time back then was that he actually wished that he was able to implement horseback combat. It would be awesome to see kind of a more significant role with Epona here being ridden around, or maybe there being some form of side quest that you can do with Epona where you of course are not able to do something with horseback combat, or you have to go ahead and fight some enemies, some bokoblins, something like that, maybe potentially in the same vein as Twilight Princess potentially. Like I mentioned, Miyamoto really wanted that to be implemented back in the original version of Ocarina of Time. And now the very last thing that I also want to go ahead and add here that I would also love to see come back is actually something that was added on the 3DS version. This was actually exclusive to the 3DS version, and that is basically the boss rush mode. Being able to share your scores and stuff like that, with friends online and trying to compete with each other to see who can have the fastest, fastest way to kill an enemy or a boss would be really cool to see. So I would love to see that boss rush mode being back and in a way kind of implemented more so to incorporate some form of like online elements, not really actually having full-on co-op, having some form of like leaderboards type of file thing that you can do there for the boss rush mode would be awesome to see. So, and that is honestly pretty much everything that I could come up with, at least in my brain, that I would love to see and kind of have them do with Ocarina of Time. In my personal opinion, Ocarina of Time is just it's just honestly the definition of a masterpiece for me. I can't really think of like anything else that I can really see them actually do besides, of course, just kind of adding a little bit more quality of life improvements, less loading times, of course, a full actual 3D camera, analog stick supports and stuff like that. If this is true, and if they are going to be doing this for next year's 40th anniversary, I of course will be extremely excited, but would also be extremely worried just because, again, Ocarina of Time by many is considered to be the definition of a perfect video game. And so yeah, again, just I would love to see what you guys think of any ideas they can add to this, or any things that you guys want to add or expand upon some of the things that I've stated here. Feel free to let me know. But with that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed me rambling here, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.